Welcome back. Bill Barr was no stranger to controversy in his nearly 2 years as President Trump's Attorney General. Critics would charge that he was more of an advocate for Mr. Trump than for the Justice Department, especially in his public framing of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report. But he also defied Mr. Trump by insisting publicly there was no evidence of widespread voter fraud in the 2020 election. And the former president, not surprisingly, has since turned on him. Mr. Barr has written a book with a pretty clever title, One Damn Thing After Another. And he joins me now. Mr. Barr, welcome to Meet the Press.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks for having me.
I want to start with something you said in an interview in September of 2020, just a couple months before the 2020 election. Take a listen to it. It was a radio interview.
You know, liberals project. You know, the president is going to stay in office and seize power and all this.
Fascism.
I've never heard of that crap.
Right.
I mean, I'm the Attorney General. I would think I would have heard about it. Okay, they're projecting.
September of 2020, you didn't buy it.
No.
Obviously, hindsight shows you they weren't projecting, and they weren't wrong. Do you admit that now?
No, I mean, I'm not sure what the basis was for saying at that time that he had some plan to stay in office. I think he actually, at the time of the election, thought he won the election. So if there was a plan to stay in office, it's something that materialized after the election. I saw no sign of a plan before the election to stay in office, regardless of the outcome.
Well, I hear you there, but President Trump himself, I mean, there was a reason why people drew these conclusions. I'm just going to pay you the greatest hits, if you will, over 16 and 20 of him essentially not accepting election results. Take a listen.
The only way we can lose, in my opinion, I really mean this, Pennsylvania, is if cheating goes on. I will totally accept the results of this great and historic presidential election if I win.
It's going to be fraud all over the place.
The only way they can win Pennsylvania, frankly, is to cheat on the ballot.
The point was he was sowing these seeds for 4 years. My goodness, he accused Ted Cruz of cheating in the Iowa caucuses, the first time he'd ever appeared on any sort of ballot here. You don't, I mean, you know, is that not a pattern of practice?
Well, I don't know. It was sort of the same thing in 2016 on both sides. I felt for a long time that he was going to lose the election. I went in April and told him that I thought he was going to lose the election. And he had, you know, that his personal behavior, his obnoxious behavior was turning off key blocks of voters, and he was going to lose. And on election night, I felt he was going to lose. And I was actually surprised it was as close as it was.
You seem to think he was always getting bad advice. You talked about Rudy Giuliani in particular, who I think you in the book credit him. He says Rudy Giuliani now led him not to just one impeachment, but two. But you sort of seem as if that you don't put the blame on the don't you think he looks for people who give him this bad advice? I mean, he didn't want to take your advice. He didn't want to take a John Bolton's advice on various things. He did want to take a Rudy Giuliani's advice. Yeah. Isn't that on him, not on Giuliani?
Oh, yes. And I say that he tends to surround himself with people who will tell him what he wants to hear. Before the election, you know, he'd cast his net broadly and talk to a lot of people, and cabinet secretaries. All of us frequently had to wrestle with him to accomplish things that we thought would keep him on track, and we were successful generally. But it was frequently like wrestling an alligator, as I said in the book. But after the election, he would just listen to this group of people who had no government position, but were telling him exactly what he wanted to hear, and he's ultimately to blame for that. Well, there's something about him that he, you know, wants to be surrounded by yes men.
That is
on the outside of government.
That is a mark of a lot of totalitarian leaders, authoritarian leaders. They want to be surrounded by people who tell them what they want to hear. We're dealing with this with Putin right now. Does that not give you pause about his ability to ever be commander-in-chief again?
Well, I don't support his renomination, you know, to be nominated as the standard bearer in 24, and I'm going to support somebody else.
No, I understand that, but you sort of shocked a lot of people because you spent a lot of time in your books painting this person as unfit for office.
Well, I also...
and making it clear that he himself, that he's got temperamental issues, he's got character issues, and yet you would risk that again over Joe Biden?
Well, I think there are a lot of American people right now that might prefer having him back in office than what we see under Biden.
But I'm talking about you've had firsthand account. You saw it up close.
Right. Well, I think elections are binary choice, and and unfortunately, sometimes it's choosing the lesser of two evils. I believe that the progressive wing of the Democratic Party is dangerous for the United States.
You keep saying, you've said this quite a bit. It's an uncomfortable thing to hear from somebody who was needing to provide equal justice under the law as Attorney General. Because you said it while you're Attorney General. You really think the left in this country is somehow more dangerous than some issues around the world? I mean, you feel like...
No, I just said in terms of the leadership of the country, I think they would be a dangerous choice for the United States. And there's, our system, the person who's in charge of the administration of the criminal law is politically accountable official. And an official has to be politically accountable, but at the same time dedicated to providing equal justice based on law and facts with no favoritism or partisanship, which I did.
The account I read in your resignation, or the accepted resignation, it seemed like you were anxious for him to accept your resignation, that you didn't want to be there, perhaps, for whatever shenanigans he might pull in the last 20 days in office. Am I reading that correctly?
No, because I thought he was history on December 14th, the day I tendered my resignation.
Is that why you wrote such flowery language, which is a lot different than this book?
Well, no, it isn't. In the book, I give him a lot of credit for identifying the key issues and having the gumption to press forward and accomplish a lot of good things for the American people. And his combativeness worked for him in 2016, and partly while he was in office, breaking through the smothering hostility of the media. But I tried to be balanced. I pointed out what I thought were his failings and the fact that he went off the rails at the end. But on December 14th, the states certified their votes.
You felt as if there was no fear that he was going to mess around after that?
No, I thought that was history, that there was no way, and there is no way, really, to turn that around.
What did you think when you saw the reports he was trying to install this Jeffrey Clark as Attorney General and fire the person that had been the acting Attorney General?
I was surprised that he was taking things so far. And
did you know Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Were you aware of sort of his proclivities of doing this?
Not at all.
I
was surprised.
Should he have been fired for doing that? Would you have fired him?
Of course.
The minute you found out he was doing something like that, working on behalf?
Of course. Yeah.
One other question I have for you. It's on the Georgia situation. I want to play the infamous, so many phone calls with him, but let me play this phone call, because I actually have a recording of this one with Georgia officials on January 2nd. I'm curious of your opinion on it.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
It's being investigated. There's a grand jury in Atlanta looking into this. How damning do you believe that statement alone is, perhaps, when it comes to him being found guilty of breaking the law?
I listened to the whole call, and in my opinion, what I heard was he was listing all the votes that he felt were questionable or fraudulent, and there was a big total, and I interpreted that statement as saying, look, somewhere among all of these things that we think are fraudulent, surely you can find 11,700, because I have many more votes that are fraudulent than I need. I thought that was the thrust of his conversation. But,
I also seem to hint at potential in an investigation from the government into Mr. Raffensperger. Do you not see that as intimidation?
Well, I thought that was very heavy-handed. But, I'm going to let the process in Georgia work. They're going to get all the facts. I have disapproved of his behavior after the election and made it clear from the very beginning I did.
You don't think, though, that you would be surprised if a grand jury indicted him?
Personally, I would be, but...
All right. William Barr, former Attorney General twice now. You and Donald Rumsfeld, I guess, share that distinction. In that respect, the book is called One Damn Thing After Another. Thanks for coming on and sharing your
Thank you.